This Wheeler & Wilson 8 may not be the most graceful or beautiful machine in our collection, but it's my favorite because it's simply the most fun to use. There's something about the thread chasing itself back and forth horizontally 3 times and the odd placement of the take-up arm that always makes me smile. I also enjoy the fact that much of the mechanics are out in the open where they're easy to see. Of course, the fact that it's an outstanding machine by any standards also helps. Unlike most of the sewing machines in this era, which used long bobbins, this Wheeler & Wilson features a rotary bobbin. This helped it run smoother by eliminating the stop-and-go motions of the shuttles that carried the long bobbins. They came with 3 artwork sets. The fanciest had the Wheeler & Wilson logo emblazoned across the horizontal arm. The simplest consisted of lines bordering the edges of the body, which always makes me think of railroad locomotives. And this version, with small patches of filigree. Intended for use on a treadle, this one's mounted on a box base for display. There was also a hand-cranked version. Over 700,000 were made from 1876 to 1887. And they would have been even more popular if it wasn't for their appearance, which was often criticized as looking old-fashioned and industrial. I believe a contributing factor was that their artwork didn't have the visual pop of competing machines. If someone was going to pay 3 or even 4 months' salary for a sewing machine, it's reasonable that they expected a substantial amount of bling to show off their investment. Finally, the excellent engineering that went into these machines came at a cost, which was passed on to the buyer, with the result that they were significantly more expensive than competing machines. Wilson & Wheeler changed their serial number system in 1876, and no records exist from then on, so dating these machines can be difficult. This list shows several serial numbers and their corresponding dates found online from what appear to be reputable sources. Based on this list, we date our machine to 1883. Additional clues can be obtained by looking at the list of patent dates on this bed plate, but there's a catch to this. Hidden on the take-up arm is an additional patent date, which is much later than the others. Why it would be hidden away like this is a complete mystery to me. To thread, bring the thread over from the spool and give it a quarter turn around this upper guide, then 1.5 times around the tensioner, over to the take-up arm, back through this pigtail, and over to this guide and down to the needle. There's a ring guide at the base of the needle holder. The opening for the ring guide is at the back. Slide the thread through it, bring it around, and then through the eye of the needle from right to left. Wind the bobbin by lifting and rotating the bobbin winder so that its drive wheel makes contact with the main wheel. Slide the bobbin onto the tapered shaft and crank to wind away. Place the filled bobbin in its bobbin cover and place it in its holder and snap the holder in place. You want the thread coming off the bobbin counterclockwise. And by the way, this is the tension adjustment for the bobbin. Slide the cover plate back into place with the thread coming out of this slot. Bring the bottom thread up in the usual manner and you're ready to sew. This Wheeler & Wilson may be 138 years old, but that doesn't stop her from laying down a great stitch. During its 11-year production, Wheeler & Wilson made many changes to their 8s, several of which can be confusing today because dealing with these changes isn't covered in currently available manuals. For example, in some versions, there's a wire spring with a hook on its end at the exit of the tensioner. Its purpose was to provide additional tension on the thread between the tensioner and the take-up arm. If your machine, like mine, doesn't have this spring, you can determine if it's missing or isn't supposed to be there by looking for a screw or screw hole in this area. The screw holds the spring in place. No screw or hole? Then the machine wasn't made to have this spring. Some tensioners have flat wound volute springs like this, whereas others have simple cone-shaped wire springs. This thread guide can either be a pigtail, as seen here, or a flattened U. By far, the most confusing feature is this thread guide. Some have the screw on the right, others look the same but have the screw on the left, and the guide sticks out towards the rear of the machine. Still others have a hook type guide on the top of it, and there's even one where the guide is free to pivot. Fortunately, the main purpose of this guide is simply to turn the thread down towards the needle, and how it does so doesn't seem to matter. More critical is the bobbin cover, which can come in two versions, a simple one like this, and a heavier, thicker version with thread guides cut into its rim. I only have this one machine, so I can't comment on whether these covers are interchangeable. Because so many were made, and they were made so well, Wilson and Wheeler 8s are commonly available today. Well, sort of. I add that qualifier as a warning. While many can be found online, sadly, many are incomplete. It's common for the bobbin winder to be missing. The glass foot can be missing or had been replaced with a plastic reproduction. Or worst of all, the bobbin cover can be missing, and these are almost impossible to find by themselves. So I recommend potential buyers talk to the seller and verify that the machine being offered is complete. But don't let that discourage you. These are great machines and a lot of fun to use. I hope you enjoyed this video and will return to see the results of our next restoration, an 1869 Florence. Until then, thanks for watching.